For most of human history, night sky was the loudest thing in the world. Not loud with sound. Loud with meaning. There were no streetlights. No phones. No ceilings between a person and the universe. Just a black dome pierced by thousands of bright, restless points. And every single one of those points needed an explanation. So your ancestors gave them one. Actually, they gave them hundreds. Think about that for a second. Before science, before telescopes, before anyone knew what a star actually was, every human being on Earth still had to look up at night. And every culture on every continent came up with a story. The strange part is how often those stories agreed. The stars were not just lights. They were ancestors. They were animals. They were holes in a giant blanket. They were the campfires of the dead. But here's the better question, the one this video is really about. What does it actually feel like to live under a sky you believe is alive? To answer that, we have to forget almost everything we know. Imagine you are an ancient human, somewhere on a grassland about 30,000 years ago. The sun is gone. The fire is low. You lie on your back on cool earth. And the sky opens above you like nothing a modern person has ever truly seen. The Milky Way is not a faint smudge. It is a glowing river splitting the sky in half. You can see the colors of individual stars, blue, orange, faintly red. You can see satellites of dust drifting through starlight. Most modern humans living under city light pollution have literally never seen the sky in their lives. Your ancestors saw it every clear night for hundreds of thousands of years. So of course they thought about it. Of course they built ideas around it. The oldest of those ideas seems to be the simplest and the strangest. The stars were people, not symbols of people. Actual people. Across the planet, from the San in southern Africa to the Aboriginal nations of Australia to the Inuit of the Arctic, you find the same recurring belief that certain stars are ancestors watching from above. Some traditions say the dead climb a path of light into the sky. Some say specific stars are specific relatives by name. In parts of Aboriginal Australian astronomy, one of the oldest continuous astronomical traditions on Earth, going back tens of thousands of years, the dark patches between the stars are just as important as the bright ones. A famous example is the emu in the sky, an emu shape outlined not by stars, but by the dark dust lanes of the Milky Way. Think about that. A culture so attentive to the night that they saw shapes in the darkness between the lights. Modern astronomers who study those exact dust lanes today still find it humbling. Other ancient peoples saw the sky differently, and this is where it gets fun. Some imagine the stars as small fires. The campfires of dead ancestors, burning on the other side of a great dark plain. That feels poetic until you realize how literal it was. If your whole life revolves around fire, for warmth, for cooking, for safety, then of course the afterlife has fires too. Of course the dead are still sitting around them. For an ancient mind, that wasn't metaphor. That was geography. Other cultures imagined the night sky as a solid surface. A dome, or a tent, or an upside-down bowl stretched over the world. And the stars were tiny holes in that surface, letting through the light of a brighter realm beyond. This belief shows up in different forms from Mesopotamia to the Arctic. You can see why. If you have never left the ground, the sky genuinely looks like a ceiling. And ceilings, in the human world, are made of something. Here's the important part. These were not stupid ideas. They were stunningly good ideas given the data available. A pre-scientific human looking up is doing exactly what a scientist does. They are observing carefully. They are forming a model. They are testing it against what they see night after night. And they are passing it on. The model just happens to be wrong about the physics and breathtakingly right about something else, that the sky is patterned, predictable, and meaningful. Because here's the thing modern people forget. The stars are not random. They move. They return. They keep time better than any clock our ancestors could have built. And ancient humans noticed this with terrifying precision. Imagine you are that same ancient human, but now you are older. You have watched the sky for 40 years. You know that when a certain bright star first reappears at dawn, the rains are coming. You know that when a particular cluster sinks below the horizon, a certain animal will migrate. You know which stars rise on the night a child was born and which rise on the night an elder dies. This is not superstition. This is a calendar made of light. The ancient Egyptians watched the star Sirius vanish for about 70 days each year, then return, and its return predicted the flooding of the Nile. Their entire agricultural civilization ran on that one observation. Polynesian navigators crossed thousands of miles of open Pacific Ocean using nothing but stars, swell patterns, and memorized sky maps stored in chance. They sailed to islands they could not see on routes drawn in starlight. Stonehenge and dozens of older stone circles scattered across Europe are aligned to solstice sunrises and lunar cycles. Göbekli Tepe in modern Turkey is at least 11,000 years old, older than agriculture, older than pottery, and some researchers think even its pillars were arranged with the sky in mind. For most of human history, watching the sky was not a hobby. It was survival. Quick pause, because I want to ask you something while we are looking up together. If you had grown up under that ancient sky, with no books and no internet, what do you think you would have believed the stars were? Ancestors? Holes in a ceiling? Fires of the dead? Something stranger? Drop your honest answer in the comments. I read them, and the weird ones are usually the best ones. Okay, back to the sky. Because we have only covered the gentle part. There is a darker side to ancient astronomy. When the patterns broke, people panicked. A comet. An eclipse. A new star where there had never been one. For a culture that believed the sky was a living, ordered thing, a sudden change up there meant something was wrong down here. Eclipses, in particular, terrified people across nearly every ancient culture. The Chinese recorded solar eclipses for thousands of years and treated them as omens for the emperor. In parts of Mesoamerica, eclipses were thought to be the sun being eaten. In some traditions, people banged drums, shouted, or shot arrows into the sky to scare the predator away. And it worked. Every single time. Because the eclipse always ended. Which, of course, only reinforced the belief. This sounds funny until you realize modern humans do the exact same thing. We build elaborate explanations for random events, then count the hits and forget the misses. Your ancestors were not more foolish than you. They were running the same brain, just with different data. But not every change in the sky was scary. Some were sacred. A particular bright planet, what we now call Venus, was tracked obsessively by ancient peoples because it appears as both an evening star and a morning star. Many cultures believed these were two different beings. The Maya wrote whole codices around the movements of Venus, predicting its cycles centuries in advance, and timing wars and rituals to its appearances. Their math, done without any modern tools, was astonishingly accurate. Think about what that means. A pre-industrial civilization, looking up at a single bright dot, extracted from it a mathematical pattern that holds up under modern verification. The sky was not just a story to them. It was a textbook. And here is where ancient and modern blur in a way that genuinely surprises people. The constellations you know, Orion, the Big Dipper, the Pleiades, are not modern inventions. The Pleiades, a small, tight cluster of stars, is recognized as a group of 7 sisters in Greek myth, in Aboriginal Australian stories, in Native American traditions, in Japanese folklore, and in dozens of other unrelated cultures. 7 sisters. Over and over. On continents that had no contact. Some researchers have argued this might be one of the oldest shared stories on Earth, possibly traced back to a time when humans were just beginning to spread out of Africa. If that is true, then when you look at the Pleiades tonight, you are looking at the same little smudge of stars your ancestors stared at, told stories about, and named maybe 100,000 years ago. That is not history. That is continuity. That is a thread. So what did ancient humans think the stars were? The honest answer is almost everything. Fires. Ancestors. Holes in a dome. Gods. Animals. Calendars. Maps. Warnings. Promises. But underneath every one of those answers was the same human impulse. To look up. To wonder. to make sense of a sky that refused to stay silent. And here is the part that should give you a small chill. That impulse never left. You still have it. Tonight, if you walk outside and tilt your head back, even under a city sky drowning in light pollution, you will still find a few stars. And something in you, older than language, will pause. You will not be able to help it. The same circuit that made your ancestors invent ancestors in the sky is still wired into your brain, waiting to be triggered. You are running ancient software under a modern sky. The stars have not changed. We have. But the look upward, that is the same look performed by the same animal for hundreds of thousands of years. If you enjoyed traveling that far back with me, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow. Subscribe to Hominin for more deep dives into the strange, surprising lives of ancient humans. And tell me in the comments which sky belief hits you hardest. The campfires of the dead, the holes in the dome, or the seven sisters that somehow followed us across the world. Next time, we are going underground into the painted caves our ancestors crawled into by torchlight to ask a question almost no one asks. Not what they painted, but why they painted it so deep in the dark. Until then, look up. Someone, a very long time ago, looked up at the same stars and wondered exactly what you are wondering now.